Hello again, my old friend. Tonight, the Wasteland offers up secrets buried beneath rust and ruin. We follow the footsteps of a wanderer with a name carried only in whispers. Sam. She doesn't believe in fate, but fate believes in her. This is the story of a lost road, a dead convoy, and a chance to bloom something green in a world of ash. So take a breath, steady your heart, and come walk with me. The wind howled across the Mojave Flats, dragging red sand like whispering ghosts. Sam crouched beside what remained of a gas station sign, its faded letters half buried beneath a dune. Her fingers brushed against the scorched bones of a human hand. The skeleton lay sprawled in the shadow of an overturned truck, one rusted wheel still spinning when the breeze caught it just right. A Pip-Boy, cracked but intact, clung stubbornly to the corpse's wrist. Sam pried it off, turning the screen toward the weak sun. Dead. No surprise there. She dug further, careful not to disturb more than she had to. The bones had been here a long time, long enough for the paint on the truck to wear away and the name on the NCR uniform to bleach into nothing. But tucked beneath the corpse's ribcage, wrapped in a waxed pouch meant to resist time and weather, was something worth the trouble, a letter sealed with a crimson stamp. Sam glanced left and right. Nothing moved but the wind. Her dog, a mangy, one-eyed mutt she called Dog, and who refused to answer to anything else, watched from a broken pump island, ears half lowered. Satisfied, Sam slid the letter from its casing. The handwriting was shaky, like it had been written by a man already halfway to death. The paper smelled of oil and decay. To whoever finds this, I'm Sergeant Avery Vance, NCR, 2nd Convoy Division. We were ambushed west of Ash Bridge, lost half the men by noon. The cargo is priority. Vault, tech prototype, Genesis core. Coordinates enclosed. We diverted along the Bone Road. God help us. Sam read it twice, then a third time just to be sure. The Bone Road. The name tickled something in the back of her mind, a child's rhyme maybe, or a fireside story told in barter towns between cups of recycled whiskey. She unfolded the map enclosed with the letter. It was half burnt, edges crumbling like paper dipped in acid, but there it was, a jagged trail running southwest, away from the known NCR routes, across dry lake beds and forgotten highways, no towns marked. Just one label scribbled in red ink, Bone Road. Sam stood slowly, tucking the map and letter into her duster. She looked down at the remains one last time. "Sorry," she muttered. "You got the bad end of it." She walked to the edge of the dunes where her pack waited. The world stretched out before her in endless rust-colored waves. Most people went around the drylands. She was about to go through them. Dog trotted beside her, sniffing the wind, then sneezed like the whole idea offended him. "Yeah, I know," Sam said. Chasing ghosts. But she started walking anyway. The first night, the desert was quiet in that way that made every whisper of wind sound like a voice. Sam camped beneath the hollowed remains of a billboard advertising Nuka-Cola Quantum Light, up your life. A flickering lantern cast long shadows on the sand. Dog curled at her feet, chewing idly on a bone he'd dragged from somewhere she didn't want to know. She pulled the letter out again. The Genesis core. If it was real, it was old-world gold, pre-war tech. Vault. Tech wouldn't let out of their vaults unless the world was ending, which, Sam supposed, it had. And then there was that name again, the Bone Road. No one really believed it existed. Some said it was a graveyard highway where lost caravans vanished. Others said it was a road made of literal bones, bleached white under the sun and cursed by old blood. Sam didn't believe in curses, but she believed in trails, and this one had her hooked. She unfolded the map a second time, tracing the jagged route with her finger. It led west, into places the NCR had never bothered to recolonize, the kind of places where people whispered more than they spoke. She whispered now, to no one in particular. "I'm not doing this for gold," she said. "Not for fame, just want to see it through." Dog lifted his head, watching her. Sam reached down, scratching behind his one good ear. "You ever heard of a road that forgets you after you leave it?" she asked. Dog sneezed again and went back to sleep. The next morning she passed a rusted sign half buried in red soil. The letters were warped but still readable. Route 17, no services past this point. Sam stepped onto it like crossing a line between maps. The air was drier here, the silence heavier. The road beneath her feet was cracked and uneven, pockmarked with the passing of old war machines. Sand gathered in every crevice like time itself was trying to erase the past. She followed it. and somewhere far behind her the bones of Sergeant Vance stirred in the wind. The second day, the sun hung low and mean in the sky, a dull red disk smeared with grit. Sam trudged westward, boots crunching over sand-choked pavement. The road twisted like a scar through the drylands. Old Route 17, maybe, or what was left of it. It didn't matter. It was road enough for now. Dog padded beside her, tongue lolling, his coat dusted in the same burnt orange that colored everything. The farther they went, the quieter it got. Not peaceful, just empty. The wind had died sometime after dawn, leaving only the sound of Sam's footsteps and the occasional snap of her canvas coat when it caught a breeze too lazy to follow through. She stopped atop a shallow rise, squinting ahead. The road split where a rusted road sign leaned drunkenly against a half-buried VW microbus, its windows shattered, paint stripped bare. The sign had once pointed to Eadsville and Twin Gulch. Someone had scratched a skull into the metal and painted a single word in crude, sun-faded letters beneath it: bone. Beneath the painted warning was a string of notches carved directly into the post 12, maybe 13, each gouge worn smooth by years of heat and wind. "Traveler's tally," she murmured, "or a warning." Dog growled low in his throat. Sam turned, hand drifting to the grip of her pistol. Movement. Down the split path, barely visible through the shimmering heat, lay a stretch of road where the wind had carved the sand away. Bleached shapes jutted from the earth like the tips of sunken ships, bones. Dozens of them, long, pale, and human. She approached slowly, keeping to the road's shoulder, pistol drawn but lowered. The bones were scattered, not piled caravan style. Guards and travelers, probably. A long time dead. Some still wore bits of clothing, tattered NCR uniforms, powder-ganger leathers, even a child's boot turned completely to leather grey. Sam stepped carefully between the remains and crouched near what looked like the last in the line, a skeleton curled against a boulder, arms wrapped around a smaller shape. She didn't touch them, didn't need to. The smaller bones were child-sized. She reached into her coat and withdrew the letter again. The coordinates etched into the corner lined up almost exactly with this point. But the road didn't stop here. Beyond the bones, the sand cleared into broken pavement again, marked not by signs or markers, but by more bones, more ghostly white shapes that guided the way like cairns. Dog whined beside her, ears twitching. "Yeah," Sam said softly, "I see it too." She took the half-burned map from her pack. The line marked Bone Road extended from here, sketched with hesitation and uncertainty. But now, standing in it, she realized something strange. The map's angles didn't follow any normal cartography. It curved too sharply, twisted like a spiral, like someone had drawn it from memory or madness. Still, it matched what lay ahead. "Guess we follow the bones," she said, folding the map. Dog gave her a look that suggested he had reservations. By midday, the sun had scorched every thought from her head except one: keep walking. The road narrowed and dipped into a dry wash, then rose again through a pass flanked by crumbling cliffs. The bones continued, scattered now. Some cracked, some crushed under the weight of old trucks half buried in landslides. The only sound was the crunch of her boots and the faint click of Dog's claws on stone. Sam came to a wide, flat clearing, ringed by ancient junipers. Ah! Their twisted trunks had long since died, but they still stood like watchful sentinels. At the center, half covered in dust and the remnants of fire, lay an old scavenger's camp. 3 burned-out bedrolls, an extinguished campfire, a shattered bottle of whiskey. And on the edge of the ring, half buried beneath a sun-bleached tarp, something glinted. Sam pulled it free, a child's storybook, its cover melted at one corner, pages warped by heat and time. The title, still readable, The Bone Road. She opened it carefully. Inside, the illustrations were eerily vivid. A cartoon wasteland, winding with smiling skeletons, each helping a sad little boy walk the road toward a shining city of green and light. The last page showed the boy stepping through a door made of bones into a lush, glowing paradise. No words, just the image. Sam stared for a long time. "Someone brought this for their kid," she murmured. "Maybe to keep them calm." Dog sniffed at the burned bedrolls and gave a low, mournful sound. She tucked the book into her coat. As the light faded, Sam climbed a low ridge to make camp. From the top, she could see the path ahead, still marked with scattered bones, winding westward into the twilight. But beyond that, in the far distance, something flickered, a tiny, pulsing light, red, steady, artificial. Sam narrowed her eyes. Could be a beacon, she whispered. Or a trap. Either way, she knew where she was going tomorrow. Dog curled against her side, warm and twitchy with dreams. Sam lay back, staring up at the deepening stars. The wasteland was quiet again, but she could still feel the road beneath her, even when lying still. It pulled at her, not just forward, but back, into memory. The morning came slow and pale. A haze hung over the landscape, muting the sun to a dull smear. Sam broke camp without a word. The air smelled of ozone and iron, something coming or something left behind. She checked her pistol, holstered it, and slung her pack over one shoulder. Dog trotted ahead, sniffing the wind with increasing agitation. His gait was jittery, ears twitching at every gust. Sam had learned to trust that nervousness. Animals knew things. The flickering red light she'd seen the night before had vanished with the sunrise, but she still aimed her boots in its direction, following the road as it bent through crumbled overpasses and scrubland. Eventually, the bones faded out, and something else took their place: wind chimes. Metal ones, fashioned from pipe, wire, and can lids. They hung from roadside trees and crooked signposts, clinking softly in the breeze. The sound was oddly cheerful, like laughter filtered through static. Sam rounded a bend and found the source. A massive overpass had collapsed into a U-shape, forming a natural bowl in the earth. At its center sprawled a junk trader's camp, a patchwork fortress of twisted rebar, bleached cloth, and car doors. A crooked sign dangled above the entrance, scrawled in paint: Kettleman's Pit, trade or turn around. Two turrets sat atop the rusted archway, both deactivated and half buried in scrap. Sam stepped forward slowly, hands visible. No point drawing iron before you had to. A man emerged from behind a wall of broken filing cabinets. He was hunched, rail-thin, with skin like dried paper and eyes hidden behind cracked welder's goggles. Bones hung from his belt, animal mostly. His voice was like gravel soaked in whiskey as he called out, "You walkin' the road?" Sam kept her pace steady and replied evenly, "I'm walking something." The man gave a hacking laugh that rattled in his throat. "Everyone walks something out here." "But you're on the Bone Road. I can smell it." Sam raised an eyebrow. "That's so? Bones don't lie. They whisper." He stepped aside, gesturing with a flourish toward the camp interior. "Welcome to the pit. Name's Hob. Bone merchant, scavenger, occasional prophet. And you look like someone carrying more ghosts than water." Sam stepped through the threshold. Inside, the camp was cluttered with salvaged tech, bone charms, and string-bound relics. Cages of mollerats chattered in the shade. A tarp-covered shelf labeled "Fresh Parts" reeked of grease and age. Beneath one awning, a makeshift altar displayed a full human spine coiled into a spiral. "You sell bones?" Sam asked, her voice dry and unimpressed. "Sell, trade, listen to." Hob grinned, revealing too many teeth. "Most folks want gear, meds, clean water. But the wise ones, they come for answers." "I'm just passing through," she replied. "Sure, but you're chasing something, and I bet it's got a name." "Maybe Genesis Core?" That stopped her cold. Hob chuckled, turned, and rummaged through a rusted ammo can. He pulled free a datapad, cracked but functional, and handed it over. The screen flickered, displaying a fragment of a manifest. Convoy 17BC Cargo, Vault Tech, Prototype EA09, Genesis were escort to R&D, Depot 6 via alternate path designation, Bone Road. Caution advised. Last recorded signal, 1:23:26, 38 Mine 2. "Where'd you get this?" "Old world spirit trade," Hob said. "I gave a ghoul a bottle of absinthe and a box of bullets. He gave me this." She handed the datapad back. "And the coordinates. Dead zone. Something chews signals out there. Radios die. Lights flicker." Dogs refused to follow. "And the bones," he tapped his temple. "They start talking real loud." Sam looked around at the chimes, the decorations, the skulls woven into the fence posts. "You ever walk it?" she asked. "Once," he said, eyes going distant behind the goggles. "Saw the ossuary. Saw the caravan burned black. Saw a woman with your eyes walk into the salt and never come back." Sam's hand drifted to her coat, where the letter from Sergeant Vance lay folded and worn. "I need that location," she said. "I already gave it," Hob replied. "But you'll need more than numbers. You'll need this." He reached under the altar and pulled out a length of cloth canvas dyed a deep, ancient red. Bones were sewn into it, ribs, knuckle bits, carved vertebrae. It looked like a shawl or a sash. This belonged to one of the convoy's scouts, carried through the Bone Road, marked with charms for each stop. If the road still remembers anyone, it'll remember this. Sam hesitated. "What's the trade?" Hobbs' smile faded. "Just a story. Yours, when you come back." "If I come back, you will," he said, "one way or another." She took the sash. That night, Sam made camp just outside the pit. The sky stretched wide and empty overhead, stars sharp and pale. Dog slept lightly, ears twitching. Sam held the sash in her lap, running her fingers over the carved bones. Each one had symbols, glyphs too worn to read, too strange to guess. It smelled faintly of smoke and blood and lavender. She didn't dream that night, but she didn't sleep much either. And far off, in the direction of the vanished signal, a bone chime clattered on a wind that didn't blow. The next stretch of the Bone Road was quiet in a way that made Sam's skin crawl. Not the quiet of peace, but the silence of places long abandoned. The sash Hob had given her weighed heavy around her shoulders, the carved bones clacking softly as she moved. Dog kept to her side, his gait slow and watchful, nose to the ground as if scenting something just beneath the earth. By midday, the road narrowed between two ridgelines where the asphalt had buckled and cracked from ancient earthquakes. Sam paused beside a toppled pre-war billboard, half swallowed by the hillside. Its sun-blasted face once hawked a luxury, vault residence, complete with smiling families and polished robots. Now, rust and bullet holes turned those smiles into grimaces. Dog stopped at the base of the sign and growled low in his throat. Sam turned, drawing her pistol in one hand while scanning the rocks above. Nothing moved. She crouched beside Dog, following his gaze to a shadowed crevice near the base of the billboard. Something glinted inside. She reached in carefully and pulled out a small, dented holotape recorder. It was NCR issue, standard military format, covered in dust and webbing. Sam wiped the face clean, flicked open her Pip-Boy's adapter jack, and slotted it in. A burst of static crackled through the speaker. Then a voice. Male, shaken. "If anyone finds this, Sergeant Hal Wexler, NCR 3rd Convoy Detail. The Bone Road's real. It's not just bones, it remembers. We lost Perkins 2 nights ago. Just vanished from watch." Thought it was heatstroke, but then Tilda started hearing voices. Ones from her past. Ones that ain't supposed to talk. "We tried to turn back. The road turned with us." There was a pause, followed by a rasping breath and a broken chuckle. "I think it wants us to remember." "All of us. I see my brother at night. He died in the Mojave. I buried him myself, but now he's walking ahead of us, always ahead." The tape ended with the soft sound of a man crying, then silence. Sam removed the tape and stared at the crevice it came from. There were no remains nearby, no pack, no weapon, just the tape, carefully hidden. She whispered under her breath, "What kind of road asks you to bleed memory?" Dog whined and pawed at the earth, unearthing a few more glints, spent shell casings, half a melted dog tag, and a badge scorched so badly the lettering had been erased. Sam stood slowly and pressed on, but now the silence had a new edge. Every creak of her boots on stone sounded like a voice. Every gust of wind brought scents she swore she remembered but couldn't place. By late afternoon, she found shelter beneath a bent metal awning at the ruins of an old fuel depot. Faded logos on the side spelled out, "RED Fuel, keep the wheels turning." The building was half collapsed, its interior thick with vines and scorched wood, but enough remained to shield her from the rising wind. "Ah!" Sam dropped her pack and let Dog scout ahead into the depot's shadows. She lit a lantern and started a small fire from dry scrapwood. As dusk crept in, she retrieved the red sash from her bag and unfolded it again. She studied the bone charms sewn into its length. Each had its own symbol, some like stars, others like teeth or eyes. She had seen similar glyphs in an old book once, scavenged from a ruined library back near the divide. Protective charms, memory markers, roadward sigils. She reached into her coat for the child's book, The Bone Road, and laid it beside the sash. The drawings of the smiling skeletons didn't feel quite so absurd now. She wondered if the author had known something, or if it was coincidence, or if the road had left its echo in everything, even stories for children. Dog returned with a soft whine and a faint limp, a fresh cut on his haunch. Sam stood immediately and followed him back into the depot's interior. At the far end, beneath the collapsed roof, lay a tunnel. Not large, barely wide enough to crawl through, but its mouth was rimmed with bones tied in place with red twine. Sam crouched and peered inside. Something glinted near the entrance, a nameplate from a security helmet. Calder, S. She reached out slowly and picked it up. Her heart stuttered. That was her name, her full name. Not a guess, not a scavenger's alias, not something picked up at a trade post. Sam Calder. She didn't remember ever being issued a helmet. She sat back, the bone-laced sash in her lap, the nameplate in her hand. Was she part of the convoy? Had she walked this road before and forgotten it? Or had it taken something from her and was now offering it back, piece by piece? She looked down at Dog. You think I came this way once already? Dog tilted his head, ears twitching, then barked once short and soft. Sam slid the nameplate into her pocket and stood. She didn't enter the tunnel. Not yet. Some doors opened one memory at a time. Instead, she returned to the fire, sat cross-legged, and whispered aloud, If I've been here before, I must have left for a reason. Dog curled up beside her. The fire cracked and flickered. Overhead, the stars turned slowly in a sky that felt too wide for one person's past. Tomorrow, she would keep walking. The bone road had more to show her. The wind rose before dawn. It howled through the shattered windows of the fuel depot like a warning, like breath through old teeth. Sam packed quickly, her movements sharp and deliberate. She slung her gear over one shoulder and tied the red-bone sash around her waist beneath her duster. Dog sniffed the air and growled, low and constant. The bone road climbed into the hills, winding through rocky switchbacks, scorched by firestorms long past. By midday, Sam reached the edge of Crosswind Gap. A steep ravine slashed into the desert like a wound. The road had collapsed here, sheared away by erosion and time. A rusted truss bridge spanned the chasm, its cables groaning softly in the breeze. Sam stepped carefully onto the bridge, each footfall sending shivers through the steel. Beneath her, the drop was dizzying, more than 60 feet to a dry riverbed strewn with broken rebar and the twisted remains of a pre-war caravan. Crows circled in lazy spirals far below. Dog paused at the bridge's edge, tail stiff. Sam turned, scanning the cliffs behind her. She saw them too late. A crack rang out, a rifle shot splitting the silence. A round sparked off the bridge rail a foot from her head. Sam dove forward, rolled, and landed hard against the metal grating. Voices whooped from the cliffs. Raiders, 4 of them, maybe 5, darting across the rocks with rusted armor and painted skin. One wore a NCR ranger coat, blood-stained and torn. Another carried a tire iron strung with bottle caps. All of them looked half-starved and twice as wild. Sam cursed under her breath and pulled her pistol, crawling low across the bridge. Dog dashed ahead, disappearing into the rocks on the far side. Another shot rang out. This one punched through the grating beside her hip. She fired back once, twice, no aim, just enough to slow them. One raider ducked. Another kept coming, firing from the hip with a pipe gun that clattered like a blender full of nails. Sam reached the end of the bridge and dove behind a toppled streetlight. Her breath came sharp and her ears rang. She checked the pistol, 3 rounds left. No time to reload. A shadow moved beside her. Dog. His side bled from a shallow graze, but his eyes were sharp, wild with adrenaline. Sam reached into her coat and pulled the old caravan map. She didn't have time to check it, but she remembered the terrain, narrow canyon paths beyond the bridge, enough to bottleneck her attackers. Let's drag them into the funnel, she muttered. Dog barked once and took off. Sam fired another shot over her shoulder and sprinted into the pass. The raiders followed. She heard their boots on stone, their voices rising, mocking, eager. She ran low, hugging the canyon walls, ducking beneath thorn-snarled outcroppings and twisted old signage. She reached a narrow bend where the canyon pinched tight, only wide enough for one person at a time. Perfect! She slid behind a boulder and waited. The first raider rounded the bend, axe raised, teeth bared. Sam fired. The shot took him in the shoulder, spinning him back against the wall. The second stumbled over him. Sam rushed forward, swinging her knife in a tight arc that caught the second one's wrist and sent his weapon clattering. The third stopped short, rifle aimed. He hesitated. That was his mistake. Dog lunged from the shadows and bit deep into the raider's calf. The man screamed and went down hard, cracking his head on stone. Sam turned toward the last one, but found only silence. Then came a slow, deliberate clapping. A figure stepped into view, tall and lean, wearing a metal mask shaped like a human skull. His coat was patchwork leather, and across his chest hung a necklace made of bones and bottle caps. "Well now," he said, voice like rust on gravel. "Didn't expect much of a fight from a lone scaver." Sam raised her pistol. "Try me." The skull-faced raider tilted his head. "You're walking the bone road, aren't you?" She hesitated. He smiled beneath the mask. "Thought so. I've seen that sash before. Back when the NCR thought they could tame the road. Back when they thought tech could save the world." Sam narrowed her eyes. "Who are you? Name don't matter. But I walked the road once, same as you. I was in that convoy. Genesis Core, right? They called it Salvation." Sam's stomach twisted. "You're lying." "Maybe," he said. "Or maybe I just remember things you've forgotten. Either way." He drew a jagged blade from his belt. "I think you've seen too much." Dog growled, low and rising. Sam raised her weapon. "So try and stop me." But the skull-faced man only chuckled and stepped back into the canyon shadows. "Not today," he said. "You're not ready yet, but you will be." He vanished like smoke. Sam stood frozen for a moment, pistol still raised. Then she exhaled, long and hard, and lowered it. The three fallen raiders groaned behind her, too wounded to fight. She took their ammo, their water, and left them under the sky. As she and Dog moved deeper into the pass, the wind rose again. In the distance, bone chimes began to sing. The canyon trail bled into a series of rolling hills, baked hard by the sun and carved by ancient winds. Hours passed, marked only by the crunch of Sam's boots and the rhythm of Dog's breath beside her. The silence between them felt heavier now, thick with the weight of what she'd heard, of raiders who remembered the convoy, of a man wearing a mask of bone who claimed to know her name before she even spoke it. By sundown, the land changed again. Bones began to reappear along the roadside, deliberately placed now, not scattered. Vertebrae hung from twisted branches like wind chimes. Ribs lined the path in mirrored arcs, forming a makeshift corridor of white. Every few yards, a totem rose from the earth, wooden poles strung with skulls, jawbones lashed with twine, femurs shaped into crude symbols. The markings weren't random, they were ritual. Dog slowed, growling low, ears flattened. Sam reached out, brushing his flank. "Easy," she murmured. "We're close." A few hundred yards ahead stood a gate. Not a pre-war gate, nor one made of salvaged metal and concrete like the NCR outposts. This gate was old in a different way, ancient in feeling if not in years. It rose from the earth like a ribcage half buried in time, its posts formed of stacked femurs, its arch wrapped in red cloth that fluttered in the dying light. Two figures stood on either side. They wore bone-white masks carved to resemble faces mid-scream, and robes that dragged across the dirt like forgotten memories. When Sam approached, they said nothing. She stopped a few feet away and lifted her hands slightly, showing she meant no harm. "I'm walking the bone road," she said, voice steady. "I found a letter, a map. I'm looking for what was lost." The masked figures turned to each other, heads tilting in eerie unison, then stepped aside. One raised an arm and pointed down the path beyond the gate. The gesture was not invitation, it was command. Sam nodded once. "Thanks," she said, though neither responded. She stepped through the archway, Dog close on her heels. Beyond the gate, the land grew stranger. The road twisted into a narrow valley where the light seemed slower, dimmer, filtered through a sky smeared with ash. Structures dotted the hills, huts of bone and hide, half-submerged crypts with doors carved into the stone, and altars built from wagon wheels and skulls. At the center of it all stood a tower, narrow and tall, fashioned from scavenged radio masts and vertebrae. It pulsed with faint red light, like a heartbeat. People moved in silence between the dwellings. They wore robes, bone talismans, and masks, each one unique, stylized to show different emotions: weeping, joy, rage, serenity. Sam passed them cautiously, but none interfered. Some bowed their heads, others turned away. She reached the tower as the last of the sunlight died. At its base stood a woman dressed in robes deeper red than the rest. Her mask was pale gold, carved into the likeness of a skull split down the middle. She carried no weapon that Sam could see, but her presence alone made Dog whimper and step back. "You carry the road's memory," the woman said, her voice deep and measured. "Few do." Sam kept her hands loose at her sides. "I came for answers, about the convoy, about the Genesis core, about what happened to me." The woman studied her in silence for a moment, then turned and gestured for Sam to follow. They entered the tower, which smelled of smoke, sage, and the metallic tang of blood. Inside, bone relics hung from the walls, shapes crafted with obsessive detail, scenes of death, birth, fire. At the center stood a basin filled with water black as oil. The woman motioned for Sam to approach. "The road is not a path, it is a wound," she said. "To walk it is to bleed into memory. Some seek redemption, others seek purpose. A few, like you, come without knowing what they've lost." Sam looked down into the basin. Her reflection shimmered strangely, her face aged, blurred, half-withered. Then it shifted, replaced by another face. A young girl, hair matted with blood, eyes wide with fear. Behind her, fire and smoke. A convoy under attack, screams. Sam staggered back. "That was me," she whispered. "Wasn't it?" The woman nodded slowly. "You were part of the caravan." "Security, vault, tech detail. You carried the core. You fled when it fell." "No," Sam said, shaking her head. "I would remember." "Not if the road took it," the woman replied. "The bone road demands memory. In return, it grants passage." Sam clenched her fists. One. "What about the others? The rest of the convoy?" "Dead," the woman said. "Or changed. Some became us, others became bones." She stepped closer, lifting one hand to Sam's forehead. "But yours was the final mark. The core vanished with you. Now it stirs again. And the road reawakens." Sam stepped back, chest tight. "Why me? Why now?" The woman lowered her hand and said simply, "Because you still walk." Outside, the bone chimes began to sing in the wind. Sam looked to Dog, who stood rigid and silent, eyes locked on her. Something had begun. Again, the ossuary let Sam go without ceremony. One moment she stood beneath the tower's shadow, the masked woman's voice still echoing in her mind. The next, she was alone on the path again, Dog at her side, the road winding west into a landscape that seemed somehow quieter than before, like the world was waiting to exhale. Sam didn't speak for hours. She kept her eyes forward, boots crunching through gravel, her thoughts twisting in circles. The vision in the basin hadn't faded. The girl's face, the fire, the core, pieces of her life she hadn't known were missing, were starting to return like splinters rising from old wounds. By the time the sun began to sink, the road led her to a ruined trading post crouched against a ridge. The building's roof had caved in long ago, but tarps and salvaged sheet metal formed a makeshift canopy over the front porch. A few travel-worn figures sat around a low fire, cooking something that smelled like radstag and desperation. Sam approached slowly, one hand resting on Dog's head to keep him calm. A woman in a tattered duster looked up. Her hair was the color of copper wire, and her face was lined with both age and sunburn. She watched Sam approach with sharp, calculating eyes. "Not many come from the east these days," the woman said, voice low and rough. "Not many walk the bone road." The woman's expression didn't change, but something behind her eyes shifted. She stood slowly and walked forward. The fire crackled behind her, casting long shadows on the sand. Sam reached for her flask. "You mind if I?" Before she could finish, the woman took a step closer and spoke with a voice thick with disbelief. "Sam?" Sam froze. Her grip on the flask tightened. "What did you just say?" The woman's breath hitched. "Sam Calder, you're alive." Sam's heartbeat faltered. She didn't recognize this woman, not at first, but her voice had something familiar in it, a rhythm buried in memory. "I'm sorry," Sam said cautiously. "Do I know you?" The woman's shoulders sagged. She looked older now, all at once. "It's me, Etta. She paused, voice trembling. "We were in the convoy together. You saved my life when the attack came. I thought you were dead." Sam stared at her, searching her face, reaching for something that wouldn't come. "I don't remember." Etta gave a dry laugh. No one does after the road. Not at first. She stepped aside and gestured toward the fire. Come on, sit. You look like you've been walking through ghosts. They sat in the glow of the fire, dogs settling between them like a living barrier. Etta passed Sam a tin plate of charred meat and cactus root. Neither spoke for a while. Finally, Sam broke the silence. What happened back then? Etta looked into the flames. We were supposed to escort the Corps to a vault tech lab in the Badlands. Experimental tech weather control, terraforming, maybe even purification. The Corps was supposed to turn hell into Eden. Sam nodded slowly, and something went wrong. Etta's face darkened. Raiders hit us 2 days early, but they weren't just raiders. Some were former NCR. Some wore bone, like the ones in the ossuary. They knew what we carried. Sam felt a chill crawl up her spine. And the Corps? You took it, Etta said. They told you to run, get it away from the wreck. You went west. I tried to follow, but I got caught in the collapse. When I dug myself out, the convoy was gone. You were gone. Sam looked into the fire, her voice barely a whisper. I don't remember any of that. Etta turned to her, expression softer now. The road takes things, that's how it protects itself, but it gives back too. If you walk far enough. Silence fell again. Sam stared at the flames, watching them flicker and dance. The memory in the basin, the man in the skull mask, the voices calling her name. What happened to the Corps? Sam asked. Etta shook her head. I don't know. It vanished with you. But something's waking it up. People feel it. The wind's different. The land's changing. Sam reached into her coat and pulled out the nameplate she'd found near the tunnel. She passed it to Etta. You ever see this before? Etta took it, held it like a relic. That was yours. You wore it the day we left the Mojave. Sam closed her eyes. A whisper of memory stirred, her own voice shouting orders, the thunder of gunfire, someone screaming her name. And then, nothing. I have to finish the road, she said. Find where it ends. Maybe then I'll know what I did. Etta nodded. Then I'll help you get there. At dawn, they broke camp without words. Etta moved with a quiet ease, her pack light and her boots worn from years of walking roads that bent in memory. Sam kept her eyes on the horizon. Dog scouted ahead, ears high, tail twitching like a live wire. The air smelled dry, sharp with minerals and something else, faint and ancient, like bones soaked in brine. They followed a ravine westward, the bone road slipping into its depths like a river that had long since dried. The stone here was bleached, chalky, carved by centuries of wind into brittle teeth. Sam walked in silence, listening for echoes in the dust. Etta pointed toward a rise in the distance. The salt flats start just beyond that ridge. The Corps was supposed to be tested out there, terraforming Field Gamma. They said it was dead land. Vault Tech wanted to prove it could grow life. Sam gave a dry smile, and instead it got more bones. They climbed the ridge as the sun cleared the canyon wall. What stretched beyond stole Sam's breath. A salt flat, vast and white, shimmered under the morning light. It spread for miles, a glittering desert of glassy crust and half-buried wreckage. In the center, like the skeleton of a sea creature, lay the shattered remains of a caravan. Wagons, Brahmin bones, steel cargo crates, all fused into the salt by time and heat. Sam took a slow step forward. The crunch under her boots echoed like breaking ice. Etta stayed behind, her voice hushed. This is where it ended. Sam advanced carefully, scanning the wreckage. The salt made it surreal, bones and metal, half-sunk, sun-bleached, rimed in white. A twisted turret sat like a forgotten idol, its barrel warped skyward. Flags of the NCR hung in tatters from the ruins, windless, threadbare. She reached the central wreck, a transport hauler with its roof peeled open like a tin can. Inside, strapped to the wall in a half-melted containment cradle, was a Vault Tech crate, its logo still visible in faded blue. Sam climbed in slowly, heart pounding. The crate was empty. She crouched, brushing dust from the cradle's inner lining. No core, but smeared along the wall just above the mounting bracket were faded fingerprints in dried blood. Below them, scratched into the metal in jagged, desperate strokes, were the words, SS. Calder, forgive me. Sam stared. Her hand rose instinctively to the nameplate in her coat. It was the same name, hers. She had been here, she had left this message. A rush of memory surged, heat, pain, screaming, holding something too bright, too heavy, running through fire. The core pulsing in her hands like a heart torn from the earth. "I brought it here," she whispered, "but I didn't leave with it." A low growl snapped her attention upward. Dog stood at the hauler's mouth, hackles raised, teeth bared. Sam drew her pistol and stood. Movement shimmered at the edge of the flats. At first it looked like heat mirage, but then it stepped forward. A figure, tall and wrapped in white, their face hidden by a veil of salt-encrusted cloth. Around their neck hung a necklace of bones, and in their hands they carried a staff fashioned from twisted rebar and femurs. They didn't speak, they simply pointed toward the west. Sam didn't lower her weapon. "Who are you?" The figure didn't move. Etta's voice called from the ridge. "Don't shoot! I've seen them before. Salt walkers, guardians of the Corps' last breath." The figure tilted its head, then turned and began walking away, slow and deliberate, leaving no footprints in the salt. Sam looked to Dog, then back to Etta, who had now joined her at the wreck. "Should we follow?" Sam asked. Etta shrugged, but her face was grim. "If it leads west, it leads to answers." The landscape shimmered around them, salt crust cracking underfoot, reflecting the sky like a mirror. It felt like walking through a dream. Hours passed. The sun burned high. Sam stopped once to check her water, but didn't speak. Finally, the salt walker halted near a low-rise where jagged rocks jutted from the flats like broken teeth. At its center was a depression, a shallow crater lined in black glass. At the bottom lay twisted vines, dry but green, faint shoots of life. Sam's breath caught. "This shouldn't be possible," she murmured. Etta crouched beside the plants. "The core must have gone critical here." Terraforming burst. That's what they were testing, and it worked, if only for a moment. The earth beneath her felt strange, like the boundary between worlds. She turned back to the salt walker, but it was gone. Only footprints remained now, just one set, hers, circling back on itself. Storm clouds gathered as they left the salt crater behind, thick and bruised with a weight that pressed against Sam's chest like a warning. The air shimmered with static, and the wind blew eastward against the usual currents, carrying with it the strange, electric tang of ozone and old power. Something was coming. Etta tightened her duster and kept pace beside Sam as they made their way toward the jagged ridge beyond the flats. Dog kept close, his steps careful, ears twitching every time thunder rolled in the distance. "You feel that?" Etta said without looking. "It's like the earth is holding its breath." Sam nodded. "Something's waking up, or remembering." The road twisted into a narrow canyon as the sky darkened. Bone totems marked the path again, but now they were newer, fresher. Some still had scraps of cloth clinging to them. Others bore names carved into the bone in shaky NCR script, not memorials. Warnings. Halfway through the pass, the wind dropped to silence. Then they saw him. He stood in the mouth of the canyon, waiting. The skull-faced man. His coat flared in the wind, and the necklace of bones around his throat clattered like laughter. A jagged blade hung low at his side, but his hands were open. "Hello again," he called. "You've come far." Sam stepped forward, Dog snarling low beside her. "You're part of this." "You were in the convoy." The man tilted his head. "I was something before that. Convoy made me a believer. Road made me more." Etta narrowed her eyes. "What do you want?" "Same as you," he said, "to finish what was started." Lightning cracked overhead. Sam flinched, but the skull-faced man didn't move. "You ran," he said to her, voice flat now. "You took the core and fled. NCR branded you a deserter. The Bone Road branded you a survivor. But the truth, you left us to die." Sam's breath caught. "I didn't know." "No," he interrupted. "You forgot, but forgetting doesn't make you innocent." Thunder boomed. Sam stepped closer, her voice low. "I came back. I'm trying to make it right." The man smiled beneath the bone. "Are you? Or are you just chasing ghosts to soothe your guilt?" Etta moved to Sam's side, hand on her weapon. "What is this? A trial?" "No," the man said. "It's a choice." He stepped back and gestured toward a side path Sam hadn't noticed before, a narrow cleft in the canyon wall, just wide enough to pass. Red cloth marked the entrance. "Go through there," he said. You'll find the core. It remembers you. Maybe it forgives you. But you won't come back the same? Sam narrowed her eyes. And if I don't go, then you stay what you are, a half-memory walking a road that's already ended. Etta looked to Sam. It could be a trap. Sam shook her head. It's the road. The only way out is through. Without another word, she stepped past the man and into the cleft. Dog followed, pausing once to bare his teeth. Etta came last, glancing over her shoulder, but the skull-faced man was already gone, swallowed by the canyon's shadow. The path narrowed quickly, walls pressing in. Red glow flickered ahead, not from fire, but from something stranger like molten glass shifting beneath the rock. Sam emerged into a hollow chamber, carved deep into the mountain's heart. At its center hovered the Genesis core. It was beautiful, terrible in its symmetry, a sphere of pulsing crystal ringed in rotating metal arms etched with Vault-Tec logos and pre-war glyphs. It floated above a bed of cracked stone, surrounded by bones arranged in a perfect spiral. The bones were not old. Some still bore scraps of flesh. Sam stepped closer, the core humming in response. Lights rippled across its surface, forming shapes, faces. Hers! A whisper filled the chamber, not from speakers, but from the air itself. You were chosen. Sam stopped. Chosen for what? To carry Eden, the voice said. To protect it until the world was ready. You ran. You buried me. Sam clenched her fists. I didn't understand. You do now. Behind her, Etta's footsteps stopped. Sam turned to speak, but found herself staring down the barrel of Etta's revolver. I'm sorry, Etta said. They promised me peace, a world without the road. I just had to bring you here. Sam's heart froze. You lied. Etta's eyes were wet. You were always the strong one. I just wanted it to end. Dog growled but didn't move. Sam raised her hands slowly. So what now? Etta's hand trembled. They said I wouldn't have to hurt you, just get you here, but they're coming. Raiders. The ones who walk with masks. They want the core. Sam took a breath. Then help me stop them. Make it mean something. Etta hesitated. Lightning flared. And then gunfire echoed from the canyon mouth. The road was no longer waiting. The echoes of gunfire cracked through the stone like a voice calling from the past, sharp and close. Sam didn't flinch. Her eyes were locked on Etta's, watching the tremble in her old friend's hand as the revolver wavered between resolve and regret. Dog stepped between them, hackles raised, his low growl a living thread of tension in the tight air. Sam didn't make a move for her weapon. Instead, she spoke softly, her voice steady in the rising chaos. They're not here to bargain, Etta. Whatever they promised you, it's a lie. They don't want the core saved. They want it broken, or worse, used. Etta's fingers twitched on the grip, the barrel dipping slightly. Her breath came in sharp bursts like someone drowning in dry air. I just wanted it to stop. The walking, the remembering. Every time I sleep, I see the fires, the bones. I thought if I brought them the core, maybe I'd finally rest. Sam took a slow step forward, eyes never leaving Etta's. Then help me end it for real. We burn it, we bury it, or we use it together. But we don't hand it over to the ones who made this road in the first place. Another volley of gunfire roared, closer now. Dust drifted from the chamber ceiling as stone shuddered above them. Somewhere in the tunnels outside, voices rose, wild and echoing, chanting in a language of hunger and bone. Etta lowered the gun. Her shoulders sagged like someone aging a decade in a single breath. They'll be here in minutes. Then we make it count. They moved quickly. Etta dropped her revolver and pulled a fragmentation mine from her pack, setting it by the narrow entryway. Sam circled the core, inspecting the stone platform. Symbols glowed faintly beneath the crystal, pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat. The spiral of bones around the core had begun to shift, subtly but steadily, as if responding to her presence. She looked to Dog. You! Stay close! Don't let them flank us. Dog gave a single bark, low and certain, then disappeared into the shadows behind the crystal. Sam turned to Etta. We hold them here, long enough to either seal this chamber or overload the core. Either way, no one else walks this road again. Etta gave a grim smile. It's a hell of a goodbye. They took cover behind fallen slabs of ancient stone as the first figures appeared, silhouetted against the flickering red glow of the corridor. Raiders wearing bone masks and patchwork armor surged forward, chanting, eyes wild with zeal. The mine went off with a concussive blast, shattering the first wave and showering the chamber in dust and smoke. Sam rose from cover and fired into the chaos, each shot deliberate, controlled. Etta covered the right flank, her shotgun roaring against the ancient stone. The raiders kept coming, climbing over their dead like insects, screaming in tongues lost to sanity. The core pulsed brighter now, responding to the violence, its surface roiling with light and shape. Sam could feel it, like a second heartbeat pressed against her spine. It remembered her. It remembered pain. A raider burst through the smoke, blade raised. Sam ducked his swing and drove her elbow into his gut, then shot him clean through the mask. The skull shattered, bone fragments scattering like ash. Dog reappeared with blood on his muzzle and leapt onto another attacker, dragging him down into the bone spiral. Etta reloaded with practiced hands, her voice hoarse with effort. "We're not going to last." Sam's eyes flicked to the core. "Then we finish it." She ran to the crystal and placed both hands on its surface. It was warm, no, hot. Memories surged through her like lightning, the convoy burning, the child with wide eyes, the screaming of her own voice shouting orders. The moment she lifted the core from its cradle, the oath she made to protect it, to bury it if she must. The core spoke, not in words, but in feeling. It showed her a world unburned, a forest blooming in the Mojave, rivers made clean, cities reborn, and then it showed her fire, ash, madness. Sam whispered, "I choose." The core pulsed once, and the spiral of bones erupted into white flame. The chamber filled with a sound like music made of sorrow. Raiders screamed as light poured from the crystal, unmaking them, their bodies turning to dust where they stood. Etta shielded her eyes. Dog howled but stood firm. Sam stayed where she was, hands on the core, until it calmed. When the light faded, the chamber was silent. The spiral of bones had burned away. Only the core remained, floating still but changed, dimmer, resting. Etta lowered her arms, face streaked with ash and tears. "What did you do?" Sam stepped back, her voice hollow and calm. "I chose the world, not salvation, not vengeance, just a chance to stop running." Dog limped over, and Sam knelt beside him, brushing his flank. The chamber smelled of ozone and memory. Outside, the storm finally broke. The storm above the canyon broke like a dam of thunder. Rain fell in sheets, washing over the salt and stone, soaking into the cracked skin of the desert like a long-awaited balm. Lightning split the sky in jagged silence, while thunder rolled slow and deep, like some old god waking after centuries of sleep. Within the chamber, everything had changed. The core hovered low now, no longer glowing with violent power, but softly, like embers beneath ash. Sam sat beside Dog, running her fingers through his damp fur, her thoughts scattered like the bones that once spiraled across the floor. Every part of her ached, but inside, a strange calm had taken root. Etta crouched by the chamber wall, wrapping a fresh bandage around a gash in her arm. Her hands were steady again. The wild look in her eyes had faded, replaced with something closer to understanding. She glanced towards Sam, her voice rough with the weight of everything they'd survived. "You didn't destroy it." Sam didn't look away from the core. "No, I stopped feeding it. The road needed memory, pain, violence. But we gave it something else." "Choice," Etta said, the word brittle in her mouth. Sam nodded. "And that broke the cycle." The core flickered once, then dimmed further, as though it heard them. The hours after the siege passed like smoke. Sam and Etta stripped the bodies of supplies, quietly piling bones away from the core's resting place. There were no more raiders, no more bone-masked priests or saltwalkers. Whatever force had driven them west had burned out with the core's burst of memory. When dawn came again, weak and gold, Sam emerged from the chamber to find the bone road changed. The totems that lined the canyon were gone. The bones that had once lined the road's edge had crumbled, leaving only dust. The wind smelled of rain and rusted iron, but no longer of blood. Dog walked beside her as she climbed the ridge beyond the pass. Etta followed, her steps slower but steady. At the crest, they paused to look back. The salt flats shimmered under the new light. And at their heart, the crater bloomed, not wildly, not impossibly, but with purpose. Vines coiled from the earth. A single tree had begun to grow, bent, yes, but alive. Sam turned westward. Etta stepped beside her. "Where do we go now?" Sam reached into her coat and pulled the old letter from Sergeant Vance, the one that had started it all. It was stained, nearly unreadable, but still intact. She handed it to Etta. Etta unfolded it, reading silently for a moment, then looked up. Depot 6! The final stop on the manifest. That's where they meant to take the core. Sam nodded. It's still out there. Buried tech, secrets, maybe survivors. I need to finish the route. Etta smiled faintly. Still the soldier. Still the runner, Sam said. They made their way back to the ruins of the trading post where they'd first reunited. Much of it had been washed clean by the storm, the fire pit drowned, the tarps half ripped by wind. But something remained there too, etched into the dirt beneath the mud. A name. S. Calder. Sam crouched by it, brushing debris away. She had written it, or someone had once. Maybe a marker, maybe a message to herself. She whispered, "You made it." Behind her, Etta spoke gently. "You could stop here, build something, rest." Sam didn't answer at first. She stood slowly, staring into the horizon where the bone road disappeared beneath new green shoots and old dust. Then she said, "One more mile." They walked west that morning, under a sky wiped clean of memory. The world didn't feel healed, it didn't feel whole, but it felt possible. And in the hush between their footsteps, in the breath between heartbeats, the bone road whispered a name, not one of shame or duty or war, but one reclaimed. Sam. The way to Depot 6 took 3 days of hard walking through hills carved by wind and war. The bone road, once lined with bones and chimes, now felt stripped of its old hunger. What remained was quieter, gentler, as though something buried had finally exhaled. Sam moved at a steady pace, dogs scouting ahead, Etta walking behind with eyes that now searched the horizon for hope instead of danger. They crossed a broken pipeline that snaked like a spine across the hills, its joints rusted and weeping dark residue. Bighorners watched them from a distance, their heads dipping low but never charging. Rainwater pooled in old crater scars, and scrub had begun to grow cautious green poking through the grey. By dusk on the third day, they reached the outer fence of what had once been a Volt-Tech research outpost. Depot 6 was half buried beneath the hills, only the top levels of its communications array and collapsed landing pad visible above ground. Rusted turrets lay gutted on their mounts, stripped long ago by scavengers. The fence had fallen in places, tangled in the roots of trees that hadn't been there the last time Sam passed this way. She remembered nothing of the depot itself, but the land pulled at her like a tether. Etta stood beside her, arms crossed. "Doesn't look like anyone's been here in years." Sam stepped through the sagging gate, her boots kicking up ash and damp leaves. Or someone didn't want them to. They passed rusted trailers and broken crates, the remnants of old field labs scattered like bones. A collapsed shelter bore a Volt-Tech emblem barely visible through the moss. Beneath it, a hatch waited sealed, but not locked. Sam knelt and wiped away grime from the control panel. The screen flickered to life, surprising her. The interface booted slowly, like something waking from a long, reluctant sleep. Depot 6, admin interface online, access level, unknown, recognizing user, Calder, S, security officer, clearance, Alpha 7, access granted. Sam stood. "It knows me." Etta raised a brow. "Guess we're not just trespassing." The air that spilled out smelled stale, but breathable. Inside, the stairwell was lit by flickering emergency lights that bathed everything in amber and shadow. They descended in silence. The depot's interior had fared better than its shell. Though dust coated every surface, the walls held. Terminals hummed weakly. Volt-Tech posters still lined the halls, bright-eyed scientists, clean power slogans, sterile optimism. They passed a cryolab long since drained, shattered canisters labeled with unknown chemical codes. In the heart of the facility, they found it. The core's original cradle. The chamber was circular, with control panels embedded in the walls and conduits trailing from the ceiling like steel vines. At the center stood a plinth, empty now but still connected to the surrounding systems. Screens blinked, showing diagnostic readouts. A nearby terminal was still functional. Sam sat down and activated it. Genesis, protocol, inactive, reactivation sequence, corrupted data log. Final entry, she clicked it open. A man's voice played through the speakers, aged and hollow with fear. "This is Director Hale. Genesis core has left containment. Last seen in possession of Officer Calder. Unauthorized deployment. Project scrapped. We were wrong, so wrong, it doesn't terraform, it remembers, it reshapes. There was a long pause. Static buzzed. We tried to shut it down. But you can't erase memory, not once it's seen you. We buried it in the salt. Buried the road behind it. If this log survives, don't dig it up. Let the world forget. Sam sat in the dark for a long time, the words pressing into her like a weight she'd carried for years without knowing it. Etta stepped beside her. You didn't dig it up. You carried it until it let go. Sam looked at the empty cradle, then at her hands. I was part of this, one of the people who thought it would save the world. Maybe it still can, Etta said. If not by fixing it, then by learning from it. Dog nosed at the side of the console, drawing their attention to a small compartment. Sam opened it. Inside lay a clean, sealed holotape marked in red ink. Genesis! Full cycle report! She pocketed it. The journey back through the depot felt different. The quiet was no longer eerie, it was sacred. Not every ruin had to burn. Some could rest. Outside, the sun had dipped low behind the hills, painting the world in copper and violet. Sam looked back once, just once, at the depot buried in earth and time. Then she turned west again. They climbed to higher ground the next morning, chasing the old signal towers that once relayed Vault-Tech's encrypted broadcasts across the Western Front. The Genesis holotape sat heavy in Sam's pack. Each step forward weighted with the responsibility of what she now carried. Not a weapon, not a cure, but a history too dangerous to vanish and too important to bury. The highlands stretched wide, wind-whipped and silent, dotted with the skeletons of pre-war relay stations and the rusted hulks of vertibirds that had never made it to safe ground. Vultures circled overhead, but none dared land near Dog, who trotted beside Sam with the wary confidence of an old survivor. Etta adjusted her scope as they paused beside a collapsed tower. You still planning to broadcast that thing? Sam nodded, scanning the broken antennae. People need to know, not the myth, the truth, about what Vault-Tech tried to do, about what memory costs when you use it like a weapon. Etta exhaled slowly. You think anyone's still listening? Sam gave a faint smile. That's the beautiful thing about signal fires. Doesn't matter who sees it, what matters is that someone could. They chose a mountaintop station where the tower still stood, crooked but tall, its base anchored in a control shack half swallowed by vines and snow. The equipment inside had suffered over the years, but the broadcast terminal was intact beneath layers of grime. Sam powered it on and waited while it screamed to life, coughing sparks and heat into the cold air. She inserted the holotape. The screen flickered. Vault, Tech, Genesis, Protocol and Encryption Level, Black Ops Lev Executive Only Begin. Broadcast. Sam hesitated, fingers hovering over the confirm button. Behind her, Etta stood in the doorway, coat flapping in the wind. If you press that, people will come. Scavers, raiders. Maybe the Enclave. Hell, maybe the NCR. Sam turned to face her. Then let them. I'm done running from what I carried. Let them argue over it. Let them dig it up again. But this time, they won't be able to say they didn't know. She pressed the button. The tower's lights blinked red, then blue, then red again. A long, slow tone filled the shack. A pulse carried outward on waves of radio static, embedding data, voice logs, recordings, everything, a full confession, broadcast across the wastes. For the first time in decades, Genesis spoke again, not through explosions or ghost memory, but through truth. The wind howled as the signal spread, and Sam stood still at the console, listening to it go. After a moment, Etta stepped beside her and spoke softly. Wait for the scavengers to come chew on our bones? Sam shook her head. No, now we light the last fire. That night, they built a pyre on the mountaintop, not for a body, but for a burden. Sam placed the red sash onto the pile, its bone charms still intact, still whispering faintly of old rituals and broken paths. Beside it, she placed the last cartridge from her pistol and the torn corner of the child's book she'd carried for so long. The page with the skeletons smiling in a garden. She doused it in lantern oil and struck a match. The flames rose high, orange against the stars, crackling and fierce. Sam and Etta stood in silence, Dog at their feet. No prayers, no speeches, just release. Far below, the bone road shimmered faintly under moonlight, its path finally ending not in fire or memory, but in signal, in growth, in something new. Etta broke the silence. We didn't fix the world. Sam nodded. No, but we stopped pretending it was unbroken. They watched until the fire burned low. By morning, the ashes would blow across the hills, and the broadcast would keep singing. The next morning, the mountain was quiet. Only the low hum of the broadcast tower remained, a steady pulse, faint now but resolute, carrying the Genesis report across the wastes. Sam stood at the edge of the summit, watching the light change over the valley below. Her hand rested on Dog's head, his fur cool with dew. Etta moved in silence nearby, packing gear, watching the road without speaking. Neither of them mentioned the fire they'd lit the night before, nor the truth they'd set free. Some things, once named, didn't need repeating. They descended slowly, following the curve of the land. The bone road, once lined with the relics of death and ritual, now faded behind them like a memory easing its grip. The path ahead seemed changed, greener in places, dust softened by the storm, marked by the quiet return of life. And yet, Sam knew, peace wouldn't hold. It never did. Not here. Not for people like them. By midday, they reached the rusted skeleton of an old logistics station. Steel pylons jutted from the ground like broken limbs, and the windmill hung in place like a held breath. It was there, in the hollow of the old compound, that the skull-faced man waited still and silent beneath the shadow of collapsed metal. He made no move as they approached, as though he had been standing there since time first cracked and the road had taken root. Sam stopped, meeting his gaze through the bone-white mask. "I was wondering when you'd come back," she said, her voice steady despite the chill in her spine. The man tilted his head, observing her like a relic returned to its altar. "You lit the fire," he replied. The whole wasteland felt it. Behind her, Etta tensed, fingers near her weapon, but Sam raised a hand and stepped forward. "Let him speak," she said. The skull-faced man moved with slow deliberation, his coat flaring with the wind. "You gave them the truth. Brave," he said. "But truth without teeth doesn't last. They'll come for it. The Enclave, the Brotherhood, maybe worse." Sam's reply came without hesitation. "I know, but this time they'll know what they're chasing. That's all I can give." The man regarded her in silence, then gave a slow nod. "I watched you walk the road. I saw you bleed for memory. I waited for you to become like the others. Hollow, bone, but you didn't. I'm not your ghost," Sam said, "and I'm not your penance." The man gave a dry, almost fond laugh. "No, but you are the end of the spiral." He reached beneath his coat and drew a blade, curved, old, with a bone hilt etched in spiral glyphs. He held it out, hilt first, not as a threat, but as an offering. Sam didn't reach for it. "What's that for?" she asked. "A choice," he said. "Take it, and finish what you started. Destroy the road, burn its markers, leave no trail, or leave it, let others walk as you did, and find what they must." Sam stared at the knife, its meaning heavier than its weight. Behind her, Etta's voice was quiet but firm. "You don't have to." Sam didn't answer her. Her eyes never left the blade. "Why now?" she asked. The skull-faced man tilted his head again, as if surprised she needed to ask. "Because I was the first to walk it. And now I'm the last to stand in its way." Slowly, deliberately, Sam reached out and took the knife. The man stepped back, his voice almost reverent. "Whatever you choose, the road ends with you." He turned and walked into the wind, no farewell offered, his figure dissolving into haze and dust. Etta watched him go, her brow furrowed. "He's not real, is he?" Sam slid the blade into her coat. "Real enough," she said. There was no reason to follow him. The road had given her what it could. The rest was hers to decide. That night they made camp in a grove where bone trees once stood. Strange white blossoms now clung to their limbs, ghostly, yes, but undeniably alive. Sam sat beside the fire, the knife in her lap, and a torn strip of the red sash in her hands. She didn't speak for a long time. Then, in a voice almost too soft for the wind to carry, she said, "You hear me, road?" The wind stirred faintly, like an answer just out of reach. "I walked your length," Sam whispered. "I bled your ghosts. I remembered what you made me forget." She held the knife over the flame, its old symbols catching the light. "But I don't belong to you." With quiet finality, she drove the blade into the earth. There was no flash, no scream, Just silence. And in that silence, a feeling like something ancient exhaling for the last time. The spiral had been uncoiled, not with fire, not with blood, but with choice. They left the grove at first light, stepping carefully around the charred remains of the fire and the knife still buried in the soil. Sam didn't retrieve it. Some things, once laid to rest, needed to stay buried. The bone road no longer pulled at her like it once had. Its hunger was gone. What remained was quieter, stranger, and perhaps, for the first time, free. The land changed as they walked. It didn't become soft or safe, but it shifted. Vines pushed through old cracks in the asphalt, stubborn and green. Water pooled in the lowlands, reflecting the broken sky. The wind smelled not only of dust and metal, but of wet stone and flowering things. The wasteland remained, scarred and uncertain, but now it breathed with something unfamiliar, possibility. They passed through a village long abandoned, its structures half swallowed by sand and vines. Painted on the side of a weathered shack were the words, "We remember, we grow." Sam stopped and stared for a moment, wondering if someone else had found the road, if others had walked and chosen not to become ghosts. She left a strip of red cloth tied to the doorway, not as a warning, but as a signpost for anyone else brave enough to follow. By noon, they reached the end of the old maps. The land ahead was blank on every chart, once a dead zone marked only by radiation warnings and old myths. But the air was clean, flowers bloomed in the shadow of rusted signs. Dog ran ahead, barking joyfully as he chased some phantom of scent or memory. Sam and Etta followed, laughter breaking free between them like breath held too long. In the afternoon haze, they found the lake. It shouldn't have been there. No records showed a body of water this far out, yet it lay quiet and blue, cradled in a basin of glass and stone. Around its edges grew trees with pale bark and leaves like shimmering cloth. Birds wheeled above. At the far end of the lake, half buried in moss and lichen, stood the rusted frame of a Genesis testing pod, its warning signs long faded, now a ruin overtaken by bloom. Sam waded into the lake, boots sinking into warm mud. The water lapped against her legs, cool and impossibly clear. She reached down and scooped a handful into her flask, holding it to the sun. No green tinge, no trace of radiation, just water. Real, alive. Etta stood at the edge, shading her eyes. "You think this is where it wanted to grow all along?" Sam capped the flask. "I think it tried. We just kept getting in the way." They made camp near the lakeshore that night, no guns at the ready, no watches posted. Just firelight, quiet conversation, and the strange hush of a world slowly forgetting how to be angry. Sam took out her journal, the one she hadn't written in since leaving the ossuary, and began to sketch. Not ruins or bones or faces half remembered. Just a tree, with roots that reached beyond the page. When the stars came, they came bright. Sam lay on her back beside the fire, Dog curled at her side, and watched the sky. "What do we call it?" Etta asked, staring upward. Then she said, "The end of the road." Etta chuckled. "Sounds final." "It is," Sam said, "but it's also the beginning of whatever grows next." In the distance, something bloomed.